Our panel will explore the future of GIS data curation in libraries, and speakers will address the traditional ways libraries have incorporated GIS services and how researchers are using GIS.
My name is Karen Hogenboom, and I work with spatial data at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. I'm going to talk about academic libraries. For one thing, we all are academic librarians. And I also thought, well, what can I say about other kinds of libraries? And then, well, nothing. So I don't think there are too many public libraries that have GIS services. They just don't work with that kind of researcher as much as academic libraries do. But that also raises the question, if you're not affiliated with the university, how do you get access to these services? It can sound great, but how do you use them? And I'll touch on that as well. They can be difficult to identify. I mean, I can talk a lot about my institution, which of course you guys are 3.5 hours away from, and you're probably not going to be using us. But I'll talk a little bit about some options about where services might be located. It varies quite a lot where you can get help. For example, if you're at University of Virginia, they have what's called the Scholars Lab, and they have maybe 4 GIS specialists there to work with you. They've got workshops in that single space. You just walk in and you're all set. But from the title of the service, you can't really tell that that's what it is. Often GIS services are located in a map library, which makes a lot of sense. People will work with you there. At Michigan, they have a service called Numeric and Spatial Data Services. You can tell I kind of cribbed my title from them. And at UIUC, we have what's called the Scholarly Commons. And all the kind of computing-intensive research help in the library is located there, including GIS. So you have to be a little bit creative in how you look for these things, either in person or virtually. Okay, so one of the main things we do is we consult with users. And as Mike was talking about, finding data is a huge issue. What do people need? How do they need it sliced and diced? This week I was looking for mortgage foreclosures by zip code. Okay, sure you can find foreclosure rates, but that geographic breakdown and over time as well, the last 7 or 8 years, where is that located and how do you get it in a format that you can just load into GIS? 1 meter resolution, red, green, blue imagery for the state of Illinois. You guys might have found that. It took me a while, but I did find it. So just a whole wide variety of things people are looking for. Latitudes and longitudes of villages in India. So little points for each of those. And again, international data is an issue. If you're working for local government, you probably don't need it, but other people do. Also, we need to help people to choose and use software. ArcGIS is not always the best option. If you're working on your senior thesis and you need a map that shows industrial facilities for a county, you can do that in some other online tools, download the image, and be so good to go, rather than that huge learning curve that is ArcGIS. So we talk about that quite a bit. And also, other speakers will go into this in a lot more detail, but we help people with data management and curation. As you're in the heat of a project, as Mike said, you're not always thinking about your metadata. You're not always thinking about, can I share this data with somebody else and have them be able to make sense of it? It's just not at the top of your mind. You're interested in getting your own results. But what we can do is sit down with people and talk about, okay, how is this organized? How is it stored? How is it structured? And just get all that documented for them. It's becoming more and more important. The National Science Foundation and other agencies and nonprofits now are requiring that when you apply for a grant, you have a 2-page statement of how you're going to manage your data and how you're going to make it accessible. People are a little bit panicked. They have not done anything like this before, and they're coming to the library for help writing these things up and even figuring out what to say. where am I going to store my data when I'm done? You mean I can't just keep it on my hard drive? Yeah. So what are the options for that? Where are some archives where you could possibly put that? How do you semi-painlessly collect the metadata about it and keep track of how you've changed the files as you've used them? So we're able to help with that as well. And again, all that is documented in your metadata. I'm assuming everyone's familiar with what metadata is, right? ArcGIS will generate some of it for you. Okay. And data curation is a little kind of a subtopic of this whole data management issue, and that is, how do you make your data accessible for the long term? Okay, so what format can you put it in so that it can be migrated to ArcGIS 20 when that comes along, or used in maybe MapInfo or in some future open source online mapping program. So we help with that as well. And really, when consultations are concerned, anybody who comes in with a problem or a question or an issue that they're trying to address, we will try to help them. So that's et cetera. Yeah. If you come in, we get all kinds of ranges of things. These are just major trends. Okay, another thing we do is provide access to data. And there's a couple ways to do that. And for this one, I have definitely stretched beyond what we do at Illinois. Okay, we just don't have the capability to do everything we'd like to. We do have a site that compiles some good sources of data. As librarians do this all the time. They decide what's worth collecting and what's not. So we've done this with geospatial sources. And here's that site. Can't read it too well, kind of suspected that. But if you see what's circled, we've got links to sources on our main page here. And then here's the geospatial data sources, the top of the page where we have those linked. And it's quite a long page, arranged geographically, the world, the U.S., and then some local Illinois and Champaign-Urbana things. But you see these all over on academic library websites. You'll notice many of these sites are freely available. So anybody can come in here, say, okay, what's a good source for historical imagery? Oh, the Historical GIS Clearinghouse and Forum from the Association of American Geographers. Okay, I can at least look there and see what I can find. So those sorts of things are going to be available to you off of academic library websites totally freely. And normally, I don't think in this screenshot there aren't any of these, but a couple of these are subscription sources that we pay for, and they're marked. This is a UIUC subscription. You're going to have to log in order to use it. But there's plenty else there as well. Okay, and the next thing, Geo Portals. This is kind of what I wish we could do. Okay, there is an open source product called Open Geo Portal, and you can put it up. You get a map interface. You probably can't see too much of that either. But what I've done, I've searched by subject for railroad. That's the circle up on the left, and gotten just pages and pages of shape files of data about railroads, which I can then map over to the right. Most of them are freely available. You see there's 3 rows of icons there. The first one is the institution that owns the data or is providing access to it. And this particular instance of Open Geo Portal is Tufts, MIT, and Harvard. So it's their data or things that they've loaded on a server and provided access to. In that kind of lower circle, there's 2 little, on the right, 2 things that say login. So those are data sets that particular university has purchased. You're going to have to be affiliated with them and log in to use them. But the other 30 on the page, you have complete free and open access to. And the reason I like to point this out is that it's a great search and discovery tool for data. And you can get there just off the open web. So you can explore the metadata. It's the FGDC metadata, and I believe we're hoping to institute this at UIUC, and they're about to roll out a tool that'll generate your metadata partly automatically and partly just as kind of fill in the blank. So it's making that process a little easier too. Okay, you can also do a geographical search. I mean, I searched for Missouri. It's like all these schools are in Boston. What do they have about Missouri? A lot. Okay, this is one of maybe, I think it was about 5 pages of Missouri data. And I zoomed in on St. Louis, and I displayed, I'm like, what are census key geographic locations? I couldn't figure out what that would mean. They're all shopping centers, for whatever reason. So, yeah, I pulled up the attributes of the one right beside that box. It's the Galleria. So you can display that, see what it is. You can change the background up on the right to be a satellite image if you want to do that. You can change transparency, borders. So, all kinds of display possibilities here, as well as finding. The circle over on the right is where you would do the transparency, borders, searching opacity. So that you also have a lot of options for saving and printing. You can download the data if you want to use it in ArcGIS or another tool. You can download this image, which sometimes all you need is just a shot of whatever you're displaying, and that makes it easier. And again, you'll notice, especially this far away from where they are located, everything here is freely accessible to download. Okay. The other thing we do is we do subscribe to data, and there are some major tools. I just listed what our major subscriptions. Are people familiar with these? Mostly. SimplyMap. A lot of business data in SimplyMap, as well as the most recent couple of censuses. So in very nice geographic breakdowns, good cartography options in it. But again, you can download, you can display and download an image. You can, I think it's SimplyMap, you can create little movies. That might be Social Explorer, actually. So all kinds of, and interestingly enough, those top 3 are all very census heavy. We have a lot of census data users. We also buy small data sets. These are a couple subscriptions. CountryData.com is political risk data for different countries, like for instance, stability of government, conflicts, hunger, just things that relate to political stability. And the UN does industrial statistics by industry, very finely cut, production data. So those are things people have asked for. We also buy individual data sets for people. As long as we can make them accessible to our entire campus, we will try to go ahead and purchase those. Things like there's an association that's actually headquartered in Missouri that publishes fertilizer data, different kind, how much of different kinds of fertilizer are applied by county nationally. We had somebody who needed that. Okay, and another thing that we do, and this, the keynote this morning was a great lead into this, is that we work on getting people more literate about data. Again, being able to access, assess, manipulate, summarize, and present in an effective way. Okay, not just, I've got all this data, I can make a map, but what am I trying to say with this map? And how can I say it best with the data I have? And we do that in several ways. I was amazed that, the big tutorial at McMaster that he demonstrated cost, he said, $80,000 to $100,000 to produce. Big online geodata literacy tutorial. It's like, okay, that's why we don't have one of those. But we do teach workshops. I do a GIS 101. We never even open ArcGIS or GIS software. We talk about layers. We talk about vectors and rasters. We talk about, 10 layers about a city, but if you're trying to cite a pizza restaurant, Do you really need the elevation? You need the roads, you need where your customers are, you might need the zoning. You have the elevation if you want it, but it just creates a mess on your map, all that extra data. So those kinds of concepts. We offer sessions with classes and groups, so you'll go in and talk to a group of people. We don't have a lot of uptake on that, and I think for a couple of reasons. We did a survey of instructors at UIUC about how they work with data with their classes and how they what their struggles are. And they do say, my students just aren't that data literate. They use different words to say that, but that's what they're saying. But they're also saying, I do not have time to have a librarian come into my class and teach this. And it's not, as the keynote speaker was saying, it's not really a one-shot, come in for an hour and you leave and they're all set. So how do you do that? And one, that huge tutorial at McMaster is one way. Another way is just these online guides that people have created. There's a whole database of them at libguides.com that, again, are openly accessible. And I'm just going to show you those. This is just their main page. And you can search for the topic that you're interested in. I just entered GIS and got a long list from across the country of different sites that libraries had posted about GIS. And some of them are the same kind of sites that I have, just lists of resources in different areas. Others are very data literacy focused. So, and here's one of those. The contents over to the left, they've linked to some Esri tutorials, other online tutorials, some books about GIS, various databases, probably the Simply Map, American Fact Finder, Tiger Files kind of databases, some journals, an RSS feed about ArcGIS 10.1 new features. So all kinds of things, how to keep current about GIS, organizations where you can get more involved. So this one's really focused on getting yourself into the GIS community, keeping yourself informed. Okay, so how do you kind of get into some of these services? How do you access them? There are just some factors to think about. One is, is the university you're kind of targeting, the one that's in your town, is it public or private? Because just by the nature of it, private ones are sometimes a little harder to just walk in and get help. I'm looking at my Washington University colleagues. Is that true?
I think we're open.
Pretty open? Yes. Okay. So it varies. I know, like Northwestern is not so much in Chicago, University of Chicago, not so much. But I would look for a couple of things. I would see if you can get access to a land-grant university, because part of their mission is to serve their state. You can go in. I know we're a land-grant university. You can get a library card if you're a resident of Illinois and check out books and have access to any services. Even if you don't want to check out books, you don't need a library card. You can just walk in and ask questions. So that can be true there. The other thing to look for would be a federal depository library. And that's a library where the U.S. government sends information, and at this point it's kind of sends in quotation marks. They send you links to put in your online catalog. And with the understanding that those resources are for the citizens of the state and of really your congressional district, because there's at least one in every congressional district. So if you look for those, you're pretty sure to be able to get in. Even like at Washington University, if you can figure out who to talk to or call and ask who to talk to, sounds like they will help you. So that's definitely an option. And as I've demonstrated, library websites are available to anybody, and there's often contact information there. Sometimes there's a chat reference box, an Ask a Librarian, where you can type in your question and a live person will respond back to you. I don't know, it's kind of hit or miss whether somebody who knows something about GIS is actually on there, but you could at least say, who do I talk to about this, and get an email address, phone number for somebody. Okay, and the old-fashioned way, you could call. Just call a main reference desk and figure out who you need to talk to, and probably be forwarded or get an email and be able to access those services. Okay, and that's what I had. And again, I think we're taking questions at the end, so thank you.